Hey guys, today I want to share with you some of the extra materials that I use when I'm actually learning a language. So remember that there are certain steps you go through. When you first start off a language, you probably need to get familiar with the sounds of the language, the alphabet and whatnot. The second part is you want to actually start doing training with sentence structures. I'm going to show you a book that'll also help you in that process as well. But of course, get on Glossika, start doing your audio training there. And then the third step is actually expanding your expression. And so some of the extra things that you can use to get your fluency up even higher and expanding all of the things that you're able to say. Now, one of the books that I have here chosen out is a book for Russian. Now, I will use this as a supplementary material to kind of look at certain phrases and things like that. So for example, in this book, the book is published in Chinese, but you can see по очереди, 按顺序, so accordingly in order. So по моему мнению, in my opinion, по истечении срока, по желанию, по душам. There's a lot of really great little phrases in here, and so there's probably 100 or 1,000 of these that are very useful when you're first starting off. Just to say a couple more here. Нет необходимости, there's 不需要, 没必要, there's no need to do that. Нет надобности, 不需要, there's no need to do that. So sometimes there's phrases in here. Ничего особенного, nothing specific, 不怎么样, 没有什么特别之处. So these are very, very useful phrases that you can get. So if you come across a book that has a list of these, you can go through them and kind of read them out loud. You can even have a native speaker say them for you, but generally I would go through these and I would be reviewing them. And then when I encounter them in the sentence structures, I'm actually really familiar. Oh, they're using that particular structure right there. So I'm kind of reinforcing that when I'm doing the audio training as well. And then another part in this book is they actually list out a bunch of verbs and how those verbs, for example, perfective and imperfective pairs, and then they're actually putting together in collocations. So having the list of collocations is something great to work with. So for example here, беседовать and побеседовать, 谈话, having a conversation with somebody, беседовать. So they actually show you where you can use this in certain collocations. So there are 3 examples here. Беседовать с друзьями. And so that's talking with friends. Беседовать о работе. So talking about work. Беседовать по душам. So беседовать по душам, it's like a heart-to-heart conversation. You could also say говорить по душам. So these are really, really useful collocations. So every time you don't even have to think about the grammar that's attached to the dush and the It just comes out naturally. Беседовать по душам. It should just come out really naturally for you. Беседуем по душам. Let's have a heart-to-heart conversation. So those kinds of things, they get really, you build up your ability to talk about them. Now, the next stage in your language learning, after you've done a lot of this audio stuff, what I would generally tend to do is I'll take a novel that I've read. For example, I've read through all of the Lee Child novels, and I've got this one here. This is probably his 7th or 8th novel, and this one is written in German, and so I've got one here in German, I've got one here in Polish, so jednym strzałem and sniper. It's actually an English word, but there's so much conversation in here and it's really great just reading through it. So I'll take, for example, a paragraph. Normally I'll practice them separately. Like I'll only practice on Russian or I'll only be practicing on German for like a whole month. I wouldn't be mixing them up. But generally what happens is that if I pick up something like the Polish and I already know the conversation, the content of that conversation, it's really easy to follow along with the story and actually pick up a lot of vocabulary. So, for example, in the German here, ich würde ihn natürlich auch gern finden, möglicherweise hat etwas für uns, vielleicht Informationen, die ihn entlasten können, oder es stellt wenigstens die Verbindung zu etwas dar, das uns nützen kann. So, I can take that same paragraph and it'll appear here in the Polish version, in the Polish story, and my Polish probably has a weird accent, it probably sounds more like Russian, but istotnie chciałbym go odnaleźć. On mógłby coś dla nas mieć, może jakąś istotną informację, a przynajmniej naprowadzić nas na coś, co moglibyśmy wykorzystać. And so you get that same conversation there in the Polish. And it's actually not hard to actually get a real using the voice-activated systems, you can actually get very close native-sounding pronunciation of that. So I've got a lot of novels, and if I have time, I'll share with you maybe in another video some of like how I do my daily schedule and show you when I have time to actually do this in such a busy life. But for example, here's a book by Stephen King called The Shining. Many of you may be familiar with that famous book and movie. But this one's actually the Korean version, and I haven't read it yet, but it's there on my bookshelf, and it's something where I'm waiting to get the chance to go through and read more. I've got a lot of novels in Korean and Japanese. And then once you've done a lot of that and you're at the next stage of your language learning, what I generally tend to do is I'll get books that I'm actually learning that are actually useful for my job, and I'll be I just won't be biased towards wherever they're coming from. Like if there's I read something I wanted to share with you is I read what I'll do is I'll actually take my cell phone, and I have a Pixel, so it's literally like a two-step process. I go into my settings, I click on language, and I push Russian to the top, Ruski Yazik. And so then I have Ruski Yazik in the whole system. And then when I swipe right, I get my Google News feed right here, and everything's in Russian now, and it's directly out of Russian news. And so I'll actually be reading all of my stuff in Russian every day from the news. I switch my interface directly back to English. 5 seconds later, I have it all back in English, and it's usually coming from Britain and the US. And so I get a lot of media input that way, and each of those articles will link to actual, native-based articles, and I'll read stuff about what's happening in the government and the news and everything that people are talking about in that country, and that's great. And so the next thing I'll do, what is useful for work, is I'll take, like for example, I'm reading a biography of Ma Yun. You probably recognize him. I think in English we say Jack Ma, right? And so this book is called 我的世界永不言败. And so I bought this last time I was in Shanghai, and it's like every single page there's just some really great quotes in here, and great things that you can walk away with. 你可以失败，但你不能放弃. Right? So that's a really great quote. You can fail, but you can't give up. That's like my last video where I was talking about being relentless. 成功不在于做多少，而在于做什么. Right? So there's all kinds of really great. There was a quote by Newton in here, which of course is an Englishman, but it's written in Chinese. And so it's really great to do those kind of cross references if I can find it here. So for example, in this section of the book, he's talking about 梦想想前进一步，再前进一步. And right here, they just have this really great quote from 牛顿. 牛顿说过，胜利者往往是从坚持最后5分钟的时间中得来的成功. And I think that's a really great phrase. Basically rephrasing back into English would be your success comes from the very last 5 minutes of a very long road that you've traversed. And so giving up before that point is pointless. So make sure that you stay relentless and you go towards your goals. And so getting a lot of different materials that you can use on a daily basis, that you surround yourself with, even if you're not encountering native speakers, but you're getting that language, you're getting that input, you're also getting some cultural stuff that comes in from that country, whether that's from Europe or Asia, and you're opening your mind to the way other people express themselves and their ideas from all over the world. And that's really important to keep yourself being able to see the world and see every situation with a lot of different perspectives. So be relentless, keep going. I've got so much that I want to share with you guys, so don't forget to click the button below and subscribe.